Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Code Remix Weekly. I am your usual host, Sam. With me is not Tim. He's out this week, but he'll be back next week. So look forward to that. And today we have just jumping right into the announcements. There aren't many of them. New open release 8.69.0, nice, went out just yesterday, and all of its associated downstream modules have as well. Lots of bug fixes in this releases, many of them about JavaScript support, as you might see in these release notes as we continue to develop and hone that functionality. So give it a try. Let me know how it goes. Post a comment. Join us in our community Slack and chat about it. But with the absence of a co-host to banter with, let's get right into today's main topic, which is scaling code transformation, a practical playbook. And here to discuss that with me, I have Kyle, our head of customer success, and Matt. You're our top individual contributor, customer success engineer. What is it? Would you say you do here, Matt?
I mean, I sort of feel like it's a little bit of everything. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get my hands into some recipe stuff. I like to talk to folks who are on all sorts of different points on this journey, right? Which is why this topic is super interesting. I think last time I was here, we talked about portfolio migration and understanding your portfolio a little bit more. And this is like more on the ground. How do you get stuff done, right? So that's what I do here. I get stuff done.
Yeah, good. Right on, man. Well, good to have you. Well, for this week, I have collected just a couple of my favorite programming memes from the previous week. So I thought I would just share those with you guys, see what your thoughts were. So I'll just start this.
I don't think you're going to be able to top the cat coming out of the.
What? What is that, Matt? You played a video?
You had one. No, you had one coming out of like a sack, but the sack looked like another, like it was furry like the cat. It was just very confusing. I feel like that's my favorite so far.
I think I must have missed that one.
Oh, I started playing audio from somewhere. Oh, here we go. I was very confused. I just tried to start my slideshow, and I must have clicked on like a tab that had some YouTube in it, because I started hearing the audio from that. But anyway, first programming meme of the week. This one resonated with me a lot because at the same time I was struggling with the math classes that were starting to use these symbols. This was incredibly basic programming for me, right? I was very good at programming at this point and still struggled with linear algebra and calculus, and I never really got the handle on differential equations that my electrical engineering professors felt was appropriate, but I made it through. How about you guys? Are you guys math guys?
Not at all. Math is one of the reasons I moved away from computer science. At my university, computer science was in the math department, so I went in wanting to code cool things, and every assignment, every project, every group exercise was code some math thing and make this work together. And it's just not the way my brain works. So
yeah, I've always felt like programming for me was more like language than it was like math. Yeah. And well, I think how good LLMs are at it kind of shows that that's a little bit true. But I was fortunate that in my computer science education there were a number of former practitioners, not only academics, and some of the academics studied how do you make large scalable systems and how do you make code reliable and without error. So it was very relevant to a discussion of
that's the kind of stuff I wish I learned. Instead, we were learning how to recreate compilers and learning.
Although now my compilers class is actually pretty relevant since we work on parsers and languages so much. So that ended up being good for me. If only. I was just like, that sounds neat. I'll check that out. And then the classic XKCD comic on dependencies with some updates for the modern ecosystem, and this one was a meta meme, or one where many variations on this were getting posted, and then naturally with people like complaining about it being posted too much and making variants of like, stop posting this stupid dependencies comic. We've seen it 10,000 times, but I mostly just like it for the shark chomping on an undersea cable at the very bottom of all of it. And then because no undersea cables, no internet. Okay, yeah, there could, some satellites or stuff, but most of the traffic is going through those cables. I also like this this AI winching it higher, but also making it less stable. That feels very appropriate to me.
Yeah. This one feels like it doesn't work these days without that Cloudflare logo in there either.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Easy one to point at.
Yeah, those are they chose which blocks to make Cloudflare and AWS on here pretty well.
I'll try to find it. There's a really good one I saw on LinkedIn this week of someone putting, the top of like a liquid soap dispenser into a bar of soap. And essentially the meme was that this is, like trying to hook up AI to your enterprise legacy systems. Sort of what it's like. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but
yeah. If you find it, or if anyone else finds it, post it in the comments and show it to me. We can feature it next week. Number 3, I relate to this one a lot. I don't know how long things are going to take. So so when asked for deadlines, I've never been able to give very accurate answers, and I think that's pretty common amongst my software engineering peers in the world. But I think the answer to that question will reveal itself as one that I'm just gonna keep in my back pocket for a variety of situations. Maybe you guys, are you guys good estimators? Do you know how long your tasks are gonna take?
Oh my gosh, this has been a hill to climb, Sam. I love a good New Year's resolution, and we're almost there, so I'm so excited. But one year I was like, I'm gonna read some of the quintessential, like how to measure anything, like all these, like there's a handful that have like made the the circuit in your consulting and your project management, sort of whatever. And I love a good book, and I still can't measure anything.
So you've read the books on measuring already, and you still can't do it.
No. So I appreciate somebody who can do this well, but I'm pretty squarely in the estimates are just magical thinking category.
Yeah, I totally feel that way too, until I need something from someone, and then they should be able to give it to me promptly. Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This one, I just like the artistry of someone taking the time to recreate a classic meme template in Excel. I've seen I don't have any of his art, but I've seen a Japanese artist who does all of his images in Excel, and he does these intricate and colorful landscapes. And this is not that, but it reminded me of that. I should find some of his art for next week.
I think I know the artist that you're talking about. I've seen quite a few people trying to recreate his stuff on Reddit lately.
Yeah, it's
like 2-bit sort of landscapes.
Yeah. Okay, Tatsuo Horiuchi seems to be the fellow's name. Let's see if I can just bring some of these over here, who will do stuff like this, these intricate landscapes, like essentially 1 pixel at a time, and maybe some clip art. I'm not sure how you okay, so he does make like vectory paths with these kinds of tools. So it isn't purely filling in like the color value in individual cells, which is good because that would be completely insane. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess this guy was just like, why bother? Yeah, why bother with a vector art program when when I already have one? Well, good for him. Good for him. Shows that that creating something is often more about your resolve than about your tools. And then my top meme of the week is absolutely this Plato's allegory of the cave, allegory of virtual memory and software abstraction. There's like several layers to this one. For anyone who might be unfamiliar, Plato's allegory of the cave is about the difference between what you believe to be true and what is actually true in the real world. And sometimes it's about propaganda or being caught up in a narrative versus what is actually true in the real world. And in this case, it's about the difference between the memory addresses your program sees when it's running versus the block of memory, abstraction provided by the virtual machine it's running in versus the virtual machine or the virtual memory abstraction of the operating system versus the actual hardware underneath it all. When we're writing our programs, we tend to have, like memory is just a block of addresses from 0 to however much you have. Or if you're writing in Java, as we usually are, it's just this vague heap somewhere, at least until you run out of heap space. So this colorful reminder of all the layers of abstraction we're working upon tickled me with its creativity. Yeah.
This one goes deep, Sam. I'm just gonna say this was like, this is layers and layers of.
Yeah. When I saw this, I was like, "Whoa!" Someone put, put effort into thinking of this. Like, there's good creativity here. Wow. All right. Well, that's all my top memes for the week. Send me if you find any good ones, send them to me in our Slack, or better yet, in a comment on this video. But that brings us to our main topic for the week, which is scaling code transformation, a practical playbook. Kyle, tell me about scaling code transformation.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to take a step back and talk about, Matt and my history of working with enterprise customers. And
great, let's do that.
Thinking about, adopting any kind of change at a large enterprise organization, even some of the smaller ones that we've worked with, right? It takes people wanting a different outcome and wanting to change behaviors, right? And that's very relevant to the work we've done in the past and very relevant to the work that we do here, right? So scaling code transformation really starts with, in my mind, this vision for any organization, for any company that's struggling with legacy code or tech debt and wanting to work towards, the future that we believe in terms of tech stack liquidity, this future where, they can adopt and upgrade new technologies much more easily and really have their development teams focus much less on technical debt, on maintenance, on security issues, and much more on value creation, right? That is the reason that software development exists at any organization, is to create value, whether it's for external users or internal users. It's really about driving value for their end customers. Right? So when we think about, how do we scale this? Where do we even start with? Before we talk about scaling it, how do we help organizations, and how do organizations help themselves tackle this problem? And I think that's where we really want to, open up the conversation today. And, Sam, you've been here tackling this problem for a good while now, engineer number one. So we'd love to hear a little bit about your history tackling this with some of the early Moderne customers, and, share some of the that we're seeing some of our larger customers who are realizing this future of tech stack liquidity. What are some of the things that they built up along the way? And it's definitely not this sort of top down, mandate everyone has to get behind it. Some of the grassroots efforts, and you need teams like being encouraged and being motivated to prioritize this and to achieve these outcomes.
Where I have seen enterprise software organizations be successful with transformative actions of various kinds, whether that is like adopting a whole new practice across the organization, or a new technology, or going through a major evolution of their core product. What I have seen is that these tend to be both top down and bottom up, right? Nothing gets very far without some level of centralized support for the initiative. Like if the top doesn't care about whatever initiative is being promulgated by an influential IC or a small consortium of teams, then that tends to limit how far that change can ripple out. Because at the point where you need everyone to get on board, you need just not everyone's going to be interested, effective initiatives will have a lot of grassroots support. And then for people who have other priorities that are not aligned with whatever that grassroots initiative is, you do need a little bit of someone in management being like, tap on the shoulder. You might not have to love this thing, but like it is one of your objectives for the quarter, and in absent that, people tend to get pulled off and away from the transformation, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that rings really true, especially when it comes to the topic of tech debt and legacy code and what to do with that, right? That we've been fighting that battle for many years, even as in my past as a consultant working with software development teams, right? Wanting to create new value and wanting to push forward their organization, but struggling to get their business partners to help them prioritize this and to help make this a thing that they tackle so that they can actually create more value longer term. So it's one of the reasons I'm really excited to be here to help our customers and help these teams tackle this problem in a different way. But you're right? If at the top level, they aren't supporting this sort of change of culture around tech debt and recognizing the impact that the grassroots efforts are making and helping share and spread that love around, it's going to struggle to get off the ground as well. So you absolutely need to hit it from both angles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a valuable skill for an IC for career progression to be able to convince your management and your peers of something. Not much. I think there's, when you talk about the importance of an effort being grassroots, I think there's some real truth to that, in the sense that not much gets done or happens because like authority ordered that it be so. Exactly. And that alone is not enough. Like there's all kinds of like, I've seen like very well-intentioned initiatives from the top crumble or like kind of fall apart or encounter soft resistance at like middle management or at the IC level if it's not aligned with what people actually want to do. They don't outright say no, they don't riot usually, but they just don't do the thing very promptly, or do it poorly, or delay and do something else that's also worth doing. And it's like, sorry, boss, I couldn't get to that initiative. I did this other thing you wanted though. And so, these something fully top down can kind of just stall and run out of momentum, or be gradually sapped of momentum by a million cuts. So, the being able to persuade people that something, that a change is going to be in their interest, that they should want to do that, is an important career skill for anyone looking to make an impact, and just an important skill for anyone who wants to make some improvement that's bigger than just themselves in their workplace or in their community.
This topic's an interesting one too, because and Matt, I'm sure you have thoughts on this as well, but I think when we talk about tech debt and code quality and resolving security issues, you often don't have to convince people at the ground level that this is a change that they want, right? This is not something new for development teams. Just how do you convince the rest of the organization that this is a priority, and get the developers that have wanted to tackle these issues for many years the tools and the support that they need to actually take action there. I think that's the key difference here. Like, been involved in other change management initiatives and other change programs that influence the way that people work and the way that they go about their work. And, there's always going to be resistance to that kind of change in an organization. But this is one that you can feel it. Everybody wants it. No one wants technical debt. No one wants security issues. No one wants their organization to end up in the news. And what we are doing here, and the power that Open Rewrite and Moderne provides, is how do we help them actually do more of both? Right? How do we help them tackle more tech debt and ship more value all at the same time in ways that weren't possible before? And I'm really, really excited about that.
Absolutely. And in that case of the building up of soft power or political power, or making an argument for doing something, I think that in addressing tech debt using automation with Open Rewrite and Moderne, it has something to offer everybody, right? For ICs, it's well, let's remove the tedium from this process, right? Let's automate all the parts that are automatable, so that you don't have to slog through doing it yourself, or slog through correcting an LLM attempting to do it on your behalf. For management, it's well, let's let's have your team spending less time on doing some of the maintenance stuff or getting bogged down in these migrations, so you can focus on things that add new value rather than things that are forestalling disaster, as you're kind of alluding to with being on the news. And similarly for, similar sales pitch to upper management, like, hey, if you want some initiatives, you want to get some change through, you want to make something positive happen, show an impact. This is it's a lever that can help you to achieve able to make the case to everyone as part of it. Oh, did I freeze?
Oh, you're back. Yeah, you froze for a second, but you're good.
Right at the punchline.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
How would you guys? So, like, it's interesting because I agree with you, Kyle, that most developers want to have more time to do maintenance work, right? I don't think anybody like really wants to spend all their time just doing maintenance, but they recognize this is gonna make my life a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how would you say, like, how do you make that visible and measurable? Because I think that's the convincing part. Like, Sam, you're jumping right to, hey, this is, if you can convince people this is important, then like that's a huge way for you to like make a difference in like reducing your technical debt or carving some of this out. But I think most customers we work with, Kyle, like they're driven by things like Veracode reports and like whatever the latest vulnerability is, or there are millions of scanners, right? So everybody's got a dashboard somewhere. But like, how does that actually translate to a team on the ground saying, I need to do this work, so I need to upgrade to the latest Java because it's going to give me better performance or something? Like, I feel like there's this thread that needs to get pulled all the way to the end, like where I want to do these things, but I need to tell that story of how it's going to actually make a difference for the company, and then also have a solution, which is really where we come in, right? Like we're trying to give you a paved path to, like you said, Kyle, do both. Like, do this quickly so that you can get back to the good stuff. But it all sort of starts with making it visible and finding the right stuff to work on.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And that, kind of going back to the meme about how do you estimate effectively, it's not the easiest question to answer, right? Like every team is measuring their progress and measuring what matters in a different way. I think what I see some teams and some customers doing really effectively is leaning into the existing tools and the existing reports and using that to drive a measure of progress. So use the Veracode example. If Veracode is becoming an issue, and for most of our customers it is, that list of the list of findings is growing, by the day, by the week. How do we actually show meaningful progress? And that is a metric that leadership can get behind because there's awareness of what these findings mean in terms of security exposure and risk for the organization, so you can start to quantify from that perspective. So I'm a big believer in sort of like meeting teams where they are and leaning into the metrics that are in use today and showing progress against that. The harder thing I think to measure is kind of showing the impact on actual value creation. In the form of, how does me getting my code base to a modern state and reducing all of this legacy stuff I have to deal with and work around and patch around, how does that help me drive faster feature delivery? So earlier when I touched on this idea of, helping our customers do both things, we've seen customers be successful with, the quarter that they brought in Moderne, they actually completed more maintenance stories and more feature development stories. I think that's a powerful way to not try to communicate, I can go this much faster, but to show actual more value being created alongside more of the tech that's being tackled. And being able to measure that and quantify that and show that to your leadership is a good way of showing that impact and that ROI as well.
I think it's quite smart to talk about using the existing metrics and measurement for a couple reasons. One, people are already kind of like, someone's bought in that these metrics mean something valuable. So if you can show improvement on those, then you don't have to simultaneously show improvement and also explain why that improvement is good or actually does matter. And just if you're trying to both change what the success criteria or KPI or standard by which success is measured, and also introduce a new thing. Well, just trying to do more things at once is more opportunities for failure and just harder to manage. So one thing at a time. Yeah. Introduce the new practices, and then once everyone's bought in that, like, oh cool, we can transform software at scale, maybe you can switch to using something like the Dev Center, or you have opportunities to make further changes to build upon that success with the kind of political capital that gets you.
I know, Kyle, we talk a lot about like inner sourcing stuff as it relates to how do people contribute recipes that capture what they have learned so that they make an impact on other teams. Like one of the things you're talking about here, like how do that story about I ran some recipes and now I'm able to do more close more maintenance stories and do more, feature work, more value generation stories, like starts to take another layer, another perspective when you're like, I solved this not just for my team, but in a repeatable way. Now I can sort of start to measure, I did that for other teams. Like now there's 100 other teams in my organization that boosted their productivity in that both of those buckets because of the thing that I worked on. So there's like another sort of pivot on where you start to see people not just help themselves, help like their teams carve their way out of whatever the migration of the day is or the vulnerability of the day is, you know what I mean? Like, but now all of a sudden you figured out this particular maneuver and you've sort of codified it, standardized it for other people to reuse.
Yeah. I think a good example of that is, akin to external third-party open source libraries and vendors. We encourage and we see our customers being successful when their internal library and framework teams are not only publishing new versions and keeping those internal libraries and dependency up to date, but also providing their teams that are using these tools the upgrade path in the form of a recipe, right? And that's one version of inner sourcing, right? Taking what you need to be successful in your teams and your consumers need to be successful and spreading that love around. To your point, Matt, as other teams are tackling their unique things, right? Every customer we work with has, a different setup, a different way they're managing dependencies, different internal tools that they built up over time. Some of those things maybe, were a moment in time where they needed to build that thing and didn't exist in the market, and they had to create that to give their software and their organization a competitive edge. But I think there's value in making sure, as we talked about these grassroots efforts, that as teams are tackling and seeing success, that they're sharing that and spreading that around their organization and helping others benefit from that. Otherwise, you kind of proliferate this siloed approach where everyone's solving the problem in a different way. And, even if each team is leveling up their tech stack and making their own lives a little bit better, you're still leading to this idea or this future where you have a lot of sprawl and a lot of things to manage, and you're not moving towards, this vision of tech stack liquidity. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, especially with the third party stuff. Like you're not generating new value by cracking the same nut over and over again about how to instrument your app with, best practices, metrics or something. You know what I mean? Like you're using this framework. This is how you do it. You wire it all up. You put the, configuration in place. You make sure that you're generating those metrics. And so, if folks are, and who knows what that is going to be in a month or a year, right? There's a new library, there's a new framework, there's a new language even, and people are tackling and solving these specific things, but they're not worth solving 1,000 times, right? And I think like our customers can solve this like in a soft space with communities where they share these solutions, right? We see engineers get together and talk about how they're doing. You sort of see this organically spread, but even like you're saying like you're still going to get this sprawl. Everybody's going to do something a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And so there's something sort of magical about being able to take some of the things and carry those forward with the same kind of open source maneuvers that we see in the public space, right? Which is they build something useful, maintain it, generate value from it.
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead, Sam.
Well, I'll also say that a strong inner sourcing culture can help with propagating change more generally throughout an organization, as we don't usually recommend that like a one central team run all the change campaigns and just shower their peers and friends and
Hmm.
strangers with pull requests. That usually results in a lot of ignored pull requests. But having the visibility to go around and like look at other people's code and make sure that tools work
Hmm.
on it, um, when possible, with regulatory and security practices and such, does tend to make things easier if people can see all of the things that they want to have a positive impact on, even if it's not strictly within their personal fief or domain of
Hmm.
responsibilities.
Yeah.
I think a more open internal source code culture generally leads to or facilitates making a transformational changes of whatever kind.
Yeah, and maybe a good segue into something I think we wanted to talk about today, which is this sort of idea of push and pull based changes, because there is
Yes.
a time and place for these organizations, these central teams, to be able to push out changes. I think
Yes.
Sam, you and I have talked a little bit about this, and you have some opinions there, right? Like, can you tell
Yeah,
us more
absolutely.
about why you think push based changes are appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about a push-based change, we're talking about something like where one team or one initiative is like, "Hey, everyone, you must do this thing," and we're pushing this out. The great example for when this is completely appropriate is when there is like a really critical security vulnerability, like
Right.
Heartbleed or something like that, or a Log4Shell, where it's like, no, really, not a single repository anywhere may depend upon the vulnerable
Hmm.
version of Log4j. This is something important, urgent, hopefully easy to understand. Everyone needs to do it right now, and the pull request campaign is there to just help you do that.
Mhm.
So where a push based change is less appropriate is with something a little bit more nebulous and complex, or where the impact is going to differ more dramatically from one repository to another. Something like a major framework migration, like if your team is using Java 8 and the rest of the organization is on Java 17, there's probably a reason that you're still on Java 8, and you probably want to get to Java 17. But there may be some important consideration, like you use a library that hasn't been updated, or you depend upon something that is not easy for you to change in that moment, and a PR from some other team that doesn't know any of that local context, that addresses all the easy parts of the migration but not that core thing that's keeping you from getting there, is just a
Mhm.
nuisance. It's just spam. You're like, I am not practically able to
Hmm.
accept this pull request. You've wasted my time and yours by sending it to me.
Hmm.
So that's a situation um, where when you do want to get across a whole organization a major upgrade done, putting that upgrade in the hands of the individual teams who know their local context, and then holding everyone accountable to the objective with
Hmm.
something like dev center, of like, hey, organizational objective, we want to get to this
Yeah.
new thing by this time, and here's some of where some of that top down support can really help with that, because you can't set a binding objective for another team if you're not in their chain of management or have some incentive to offer them. But you can say, hey, everyone need to get to Java 21 or 25 or whatever by this date. And oh, by the way, here's tools and automation that'll help make that easy for you. They want to do everything for you, but they'll do a lot of it for you. So use them or don't. But the objective has been set with a timeline that assumes you're going to use the automation that will help you.
Yeah.
Hmm. I think it's worth noting, like there's a whole spectrum of teams, right, Sam, that sometimes
Hmm.
you can just hand them the recipes that will do most of the job, and that's enough nudge to get them over the finish line. And
Hmm.
then there
Hmm.
are folks that, like, there's a reason they're on these older like technologies, like life is complicated, the software is complicated. Now we've added another complicated thing, these automations, right? So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
it's worth, another sort of play here, another maneuver is sort of adding the people aspect, the enablement team, the soft support early on for those early customers that are engaging with that set of recipes, so that you're
Hmm.
starting to like meet people, like Kyle said, like meet them where they're at, right? You've got some folks that are going to run quickly towards checking that green box off, and they're going to be one of the first people on Dev Center to turn green and be, celebrate those folks, right? But the work isn't done until it's done. You know what I mean? And I think we see all the time, Kyle, like different teams need different amounts of support and help and material to make one of these complicated migrations happen, whether you're doing it with automation or not. And so that's something to consider, building that on-ramp and making it easy for those first customers who are like your early adopters, but also the folks that need to get across the finish line one way or the other.
Yeah, I'd be curious if you and Sam maybe could talk a little bit more about some of the recipes that those teams could use to better plan and better find the right entry point for their own migration if they're dealing with more complex situations, because I think that will give our audience here something a little bit more actionable. As you said, right, some teams are ready to jump in and go straight into the migration and try to get to the end result as quickly as possible. Others have a more complex situation. They need a little bit of situational awareness to be able to figure out how to navigate the dependencies that they need to solve for and how to actually start making progress towards the outcome that they want. Maybe they're not ready to jump right into the end result just yet, or as you said, it's just more complex for them.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
let's do it.
A lot of the most successful migrations or major upgrades are going to start with some fact finding, right? You from your particular context within an organization have some notion of what the problems are and what the opportunities are for improvement. But whenever I've like been on a call with an engineer and I've asked like questions like, how much code do you like? How many repositories do you have? What's the spread of versions for this library you want to upgrade that are actually in use? They've been like, well, I think it's about, something kind of off the cuff based on, water cooler conversations or their own, usually not particularly scientific sampling of just their own personal experience. And that's fine. Like, that's just where you start. I'm not really expecting that people have like an accurate and up-to-date stat book on all of their organization's code and repositories, just in front of them. But, when it's time to start planning or to really try to make a change, you need to get to that level of rigor in order to have any hope of making an accurate estimate, as we joked about with the meme earlier. And so there's a couple recipes that I think are particularly good for that. I'll just share my screen again. We can look at some of these guys. Yeah. So like one, if you're talking about like a library upgrade, just knowing what versions of that library you have in use can be good. So like if I wanted to upgrade, the version of Jackson, and I think Jackson did a major version release of Faster XML recently. Let's see, and I'll run this out, open rewrite. I might want to use this dependency insight recipe, which I just, accepts wildcards. So I just searching for Faster XML to see kind of the spread of Jackson versions that are currently in use across all of the repositories that I care about. And I can obviously see the specific like entries and build files that are bringing in the current version of Jackson that for each project. But for project planning purposes, these individual results are maybe not what you care so much for looking at. And you might want to go to like the dependencies in use data table in order to check out an aggregate. And while that is downloading, we can maybe just go ahead and start the visualization. Yeah. We'll see what opens first, the spreadsheet or the visualization. Oh, it looks like the spreadsheet has won the race for now. But yeah, I can go and check this and see. Oops, scroll bar is too small in this UI, and like see the spread of versions of various Faster XML dependencies here. And I guess I didn't specify Jackson, so we got this Woodstocks one sneaking in, messing up the spread of version numbers. But we're clearly our organization is mostly on 2.17.2. So we are not quite ready to go to, well, maybe we're ready to go to 3, but it would just be an error occurred while loading the visualization. don't know. We'll have to go take a look at that later. Figure out why this visualization is broken. I wonder. Yeah, maybe the columns in the spreadsheet changed.
I'll dig into it. I think so, Sam. One of the things I've been really interested in lately, around like Java migrations and Spring migrations, right, is understanding like how to sequence and understand what the common speed bumps might be. And so things like this is really great when you're. So somebody had mentioned to me they often find like code generators. Right, are notoriously hard because like those code generators are generating code for specific flavors of Java and things like that. And a lot of times those are like these weird like last moment compilation failures where you're generating stuff that still has Java X in it or whatnot. So I like using something like dependency insight to find where in my 1,000 repositories am I using some of these sort of common code generators. Gives you these like little hot spots, right? Little areas where you're like, oh, I know that this code generator, we use it to generate all of our data access layer stuff. And it, as long as we move to version 4, we're good. But which do we still have an ecosystem of version 3, which is going to stop us from doing this? Because the alternative is people push the button, they try and upgrade some stuff, and they realize like I'm sort of in this web of dependencies that I have to sort of unroll and go find where this code generator is living and how to upgrade it before I can go and upgrade the thing I really set out to upgrade. Other recipes that
discovering the dependencies and like the unknown unknowns, I suppose. Of what getting a catalog of what your common speed bumps are. This might be things like you have your objective is to upgrade to Spring Boot 3, but to do that you have to also upgrade your version of Java, and you got to upgrade the version of Gradle you're using. That your dependencies have dependencies. So coming up with that. With an accurate picture of your status there can help. And we've already mentioned a couple times using the Dev Center to track initiatives. And so something like this, where you have for all of the repositories in an organization, you use recipes to define what your major objectives are for that organization. And so in the case of a Spring Boot migration, you might have you might have the Spring Boot, and you might have the Java view, and you might have like maybe the presence of a code generator, right? This is all customizable based upon what recipes and configuration you use. So once you do that preliminary analysis and you were like, okay, the use of thrift 2.4 is common in our organization, and that's an impediment to upgrade. I'm not saying thrift is an impediment to Spring upgrade. I chose that name of that code generation technology at random. No thrift devs come after me, or do. All engagement is good. Just do it in the comments. We'll have a little flame war. It'll be fun for everyone. New beef started with thrift. And then once you can see the status here, you can start breaking the problem into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Yeah, I think maybe a good moment to plug the upcoming training for planning your Spring Boot migration. Matt, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah.
I mean, selfishly, that's why it's on the top of my mind, right? We'll be doing a really specific session in January around using some of these tools, right? Some of this code insight, in order to just really try and avoid or to smooth out those speed bumps, right? We recognize that people want to get to Spring 3.5, Spring 4, Java 25. And you want to go all the way there, but it's not usually a straight path. And that can include things like the stuff we're talking about here, where you've got some third-party libraries that are not going to play well, and you need to work your way through there. It can also be things like internal shared libraries, right? Hey, we have another team somewhere else that develops this thing that we're using, and I actually have to wait for a second until they've run through their migration, right? So now you're starting to talk a little bit about coordinating amongst team areas and things like that. So what can we do in terms of exploring the code base and sort of just mapping that out on one hand, so you know what you're getting into, but then chipping away at that and sort of raising the bar as far as you can, right? So you mentioned Gradle, you mentioned Java, Sam. So maybe you can't go all the way to Spring 4 today, but what can you do? And sort of sort of pushing that the value as far as you can while still moving the needle forward and never feeling like you're stuck, because that's like the hardest part about these migrations is feeling stuck.
Yeah.
So
in terms of, I want to get more specific about pushing things as far as you can. One strategy we've seen work really well at organizations that start off with, as most do, with, yeah, sure, this team is on the latest thing and this team is not, and there's a big spread, is to try to raise the floor. Be like, okay, rather than trying to get everyone to rather than taking like a depth first approach of like, hey, everyone, the objective is like Spring Boot 3 or Spring Boot 4, and if you're close to that, great, you achieve it, and just rush whatever teams can to get the whole migration done. Focus instead on raising the floor of like, okay, can we get the version of Gradle in use everywhere up to a version that can support the upgrade? And then, okay, once the version of Gradle is met that minimum bar everywhere, can we get the version of Java meeting the minimum bar everywhere? And okay, once that's met the minimum bar for the upgrade, can we get, I don't know, some other dependency and use Hibernate or something, whatever might be common in your organization that is, paired together with that major initiative. Can we get all of those up there? And so eventually you can kind of like keep like moving the starting line closer and closer to the finish line kind of thing. Because you don't really need to worry about the teams that are already really close to being on the new thing. They could go to the new thing at any moment. It's the danger of getting stuck and having the whole initiative derailed is in the teams and repositories that are stuck or on one of these older technologies or have impediments before they could even really undertake the final objective of the migration in earnest.
Yeah. One thing I really like about that strategy, Sam, and one thing I don't want to lose sight of here, especially for our audience, right? We're talking about these complex migrations, many of which sometimes are outside of that immediate team's control. So breaking that migration down into more incremental steps and shortening some time to value, really getting some wins under the team's belt in things that they do control, I think is really important. I think, getting Gradle upgraded and getting the Java version upgraded, those are actually paying down dividends and providing those teams benefits as well while they're waiting for other pieces of the migration to come together. But I really want to, with the time remaining here, maybe leave our audience with some other powerful tools, other types of recipes and things that they can run to get immediate value and get quick wins, because those quick wins and building momentum behind them, I think, are really key for any large organization, being able to show that you're making progress on this day by day, week by week. One that comes up a lot for me in conversation with customers is obviously the common static analysis issues recipe, right? That's something that's much more within an immediate team's control, specific to their repositories. And generally, when we talk about those changes, they're not often, maybe a few of them are
uncontroversial.
For the most part, they're not controversial. They're not things that are going to introduce a bunch of breaking changes or have dependencies on other teams. They're really just pushing your code health and your code quality, performance, security, all these sorts of things forward in your code base and paying out dividends with a lot less effort than what we just talked about in terms of a much larger Spring Boot migration. So what are some of the, maybe you can touch on, common static analysis, but what are some of the other quick win recipes that we've seen customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, for like planning major migration, there is like find Gradle wrapper, or equivalently like find Maven wrappers if those are in use, where you can use to check that your build tools are up to date. Ours are very much up to date. This is a very recent version of Gradle. As Shannon, a Gradle enthusiast, even before he joined the company, was always on top of using Moderne to upgrade Open Rewrite to the latest version of Gradle, which also means that it's easy to stay up to date when there's only ever a small version delta between where you are and the latest release. Like, if you're at the oldest at N-1, usually it's just not as big a jump to get back on N. So you can use search recipes like find Gradle wrappers and find dependencies and find method usages to scope out what the usage of the thing of interest is across your whole organization, really come up with a plan. And then, there are kind of those like tactical things where you can, like common static analysis, just make code quality improvements across the code base. And I feel like this kind of cleanup is maybe even more relevant now than it was before the advent of LLMs, as those are going to suck up and regurgitate whatever code patterns they find in your code base, so they can easily amplify bad practices, right? Like if there's a mistake in your code that just gets sucked up into its context, that mistake might be repeated many times throughout its output. And so having code that is terse and standardized improves the quality of the output you get from these tools, and improves the quality of output that your colleagues are going to get from these tools that you will then be, code reviewing and pull requests and the like. So, like common static analysis is a good one for code cleanup. Like getting
maybe
rid
something
of
like a Search best practices.
Yeah, logging best practices.
I feel like every time, I as a consultant, similar to Kyle, like you jump between teams and everybody has this like slightly different flavor of testing. And so within an organization, if you can like shrink that surface area a little bit, it makes it easier for folks to come and go from teams in different ways, or to contribute in different ways more easily, and not have to like sort of retrain themselves on the dialect of tests that this team might happen to be working on, right?
Totally.
So those are kind of things you can just like clean up behind yourself.
Yeah, and like the SLF4J best practices one is both like uncontroversial generally, and can give you some modest little performance benefits, like like avoiding calculating, like in this original form of this like in this original form, like it can avoid ever even evaluating this lambda if at runtime the log level is not supporting the info log level, right? So you can avoid evaluating code that would produce logging statements that don't actually get emitted. So that can be like a minor performance boost. And just imagine doing this by hand, right? Like how long it would take to go through every logging statement out of thousands of log statements and change them all around slightly to use the Lambda syntax. Massively tedious. And if you were to ask like an LLM to make that transformation, well, it'd be there all day, searching and changing a couple and running the tests and using up all your tokens for the month or week or whatever in one go. So anything that is like systemic, anything that is really kind of like covers the whole code base with one kind of like repeatable change, great for automating with the recipe.
Cool. Well, hopefully we provided a few good tools for the audience here. Maybe just to quickly recap things we talked about today in terms of strategies, right? First and foremost, finding ways to communicate the value in a different way, in a different light, measure value, share that, make sure that leadership and your organization as a whole understands the benefits of doing this work and how you can do more with less, especially when you're automating it. We talked about the inner sourcing culture, making sure that we're creating space for teams to share their work, and for each team that's tackling a problem to benefit from the previous team that tackled it. We talked about internal framework authors being able to publish automation and recipes that help their consumers level up. We talked about planning big migrations and some of the tools you can use to understand the dependencies in your organization, and how you can make incremental progress even when the big migration itself feels really complex and really hard to tackle. How do you raise the floor, as Sam put it? We talked about some of these quick wins, right? What can you do within your own team and within your own scope to really move your code base forward and start, getting more proactive about managing tech debt and managing code health and code quality, and, driving towards common standards in the way that you're implementing test frameworks and logging patterns. What did we miss there? Any other final words? Any other final strategies or tips?
I feel like that was pretty good. Good job, Kyle. Excellent summary. Won't need to enable the AI summary of the meeting this time.
That was my goals.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Be more useful than an LLM is a goal for all of us. How about you, Matt? Any closing remarks?
No, I just double tap on, come and hang out with me in January for migration planning. It's a thing that everybody is doing. Everybody's, trying to answer these questions. So we've got some interesting stuff to show there. If you watched the code remix with Merlin a while back on release train engineering, there's a bit of an evolution of that to help sort of navigate some of this like internal shared library stuff that we're talking about, which I find very cool. Like that's the kind of stuff that like really I just love seeing how all the data that we have in the LSTs lets us answer questions like that. So yeah, this is just the beginning of people solving these problems, helping teams do migration stuff. So.
And speaking of coming to see us, there is a Code Remix Summit coming up in May, right? May, yeah. There'll be a little video that'll play after this that will have the actual date. So take its word over mine. But I did just go through yesterday some 30 of the submissions that have been made for to present and to narrow it down to a list of 10. And those list of 10 I was looking at, pretty good stuff, covering a variety of topics. You're gonna want to see them. I'm sure we'll have those guys notified soon and start posting the speakers. But look forward to it. Yeah. Well, all right, Matt, Kyle, thank you for joining me, and I hope you and all of our viewers have a lovely rest of their day. Goodbye for now.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
Thanks for being here.